for those of you who have ever played the game Dungeons and Dragons. And whether it was using the old school books that came out in the mid-1970s, early 1980s, or the most recent modern editions that we have out now that have been out the last 9 or 10 years. How were you introduced to the game? But more importantly, do you remember the very first gaming session that you ever attended, or the very first character that you ever made? I do, and it was legendary. Hey everyone, my name is Tom, and I welcome you to Escape Reality Hobbies. So why am I talking about Dungeons and Dragons? One, I think I have a pretty neat story to tell you guys. Two, Dungeons and Dragons has always been cool, but the last 10 years or so, its popularity has skyrocketed, and it's pretty much in vogue now. And three, let's just call this video a teaser for my next full video where I'm going to show you my greatest hobby collection or gaming collection find ever. In the spring of 1979, a time at my high school when a lot of the guys still kind of like to wear their hair like they were Steve Perry of Journey.
Any way you want it, that's the way you need it.
Best rock band ever.
I was finishing up my sophomore year, just a geeky little teenager trying to keep out of trouble and trying not to embarrass my sister, who graduated that year. One morning during my third period marine biology class, I was introduced to the game Dungeons and Dragons. One of the seniors in the class brought him these 3 booklets that he handed me and said I could look at them during the period. I gotta admit, and I apologize, Mr. Wright, I didn't pay any attention to your lesson plan that entire period. So that summer, after beach time, fishing time, hobby time, and most important, part-time employment, I was able to set enough money aside so I could go out and purchase the 3 core rulebooks of the first edition of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I read the books and looked at the pictures dozens of times, but unfortunately, I never used the books once or ever played the game.
Do you have an explanation for this?
It's not that I didn't want to play the game, but all my friends who had interest in playing before, they were either working full-time or different work schedules involved in after-school activities, or all their time was going to their new, spooky, gothic-looking, cello-playing girlfriend. Seriously, Wednesday on Netflix, great show. So the books kind of got relegated to my Island and Misfit Toys shelf, and as a senior, I ended up selling them for gas money and girl money.
Hey, baby. Looking for a good time?
Girlfriend
money.
not money for...
Yeah.
But in the late summer of 1986, over 7 years since I was first introduced to the game, I finally got my opportunity to play. I was stationed at Fort Meade, Maryland, and one of the Army guys that I work with said that he was a member of a Dungeons and Dragons gaming group, and they met every Friday night religiously from like 6 p.m. to midnight, sometimes until 1 a.m.
And sometimes until 3 a.m.
He also said that every single session they always had lots of pizza, chips, pretzels, sodas, and beer. I found out that the dungeon master of the group was also in the Navy, like me, that he lived in the same barracks, I just lived on a different floor from him. So I met him about 45 minutes before the gaming session began, one, to introduce myself.
I'm pleased to meet you.
2, I wanted to try and get a little refresher because it had been 7 years since I basically looked at the books. And 3, I really wanted to get some help in rolling up my very first level character. He told me that his gaming group was deep into the adventure module, the Temple of Elemental Evil, and that all the other player characters were 5th, 6th, or even 7th level. He really wanted me to play one of his pre-generated characters that was a 4th level Dwarven fighter. I really wanted to roll up my own character, but he said, hey, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or probably even 3rd level characters wouldn't make it more than 15 minutes in this session. Again, I really wanted to roll up my 1st level character, but he pretty much said,
I'm disinclined to acquiesce to your request. Means no.
But you know what? He did let me roll up a 1st level character. I rolled up a human thief. His name was Vorist, and he had a massive 6 hit points.
I am Groot. I am Groot.
To try and help me out, he gave me a healing potion,
Please, sir. I want some more.
a silver dagger, and a magical +2 short sword. When the rest of the players arrived, I introduced myself and I told them that I was playing a 1st level human thief. 3 of the players kind of looked at me and said, you're not going to probably last more than 15 minutes. That seems to be a common phrase with this group. In order for my character to meet up with the existing party, the Dungeon Master had placed me in some somewhat empty storeroom. I was locked in a cage, I was unconscious, but when they found me, woke me up, luckily all my belongings were there. So about the first 10 minutes after that, the group just kind of wandered around to a couple places they had already been, another storeroom or empty room where they basically wanted to make contingency plans in case this particular scenario happened, that particular scenario happened. When it came to my role, they pretty much just said if the proverbial poop starts hitting the fan, that I should run.
Run, Forrest, run!
Run.
So after 15 minutes of gameplay, pretty much just like the Dungeon Master had predicted,
Or planned.
our party had met up with one of the 2 remaining bad bosses of this entire module. She was some type of female demon, some demoness. And it became pretty apparent that just after the first 2 rounds of combat, she was kicking our butts.
Hey, maybe you haven't been keeping up on current events, but we just got our asses kicked, pal.
During the first round of combat, I didn't take the advice of... I tried to sneak closer to her. I was trying to actually sneak behind her using my newly found skills of move silently or hide in shadows, even though I had a very slim chance to do so. The second round of combat, even before I had my opportunity to go, I was last because I had rolled the worst initiative. 3 of the other players were already rolling 6-sided dice, D6s, to roll up brand new characters because they pretty much knew we were all gonna die.
I don't want to die! Pull yourself together!
Don't worry, you're not gonna die. I don't want to die, loser.
So when it came to my turn and the Dungeon Master asked what I wanted to do, I really wasn't sure, so I kind of sat back, took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and then I heard the voices of the invisible role-playing game spirits that were in the room. I heard their voices in my head.
Do you want to live forever?
Use the force.
Throw your short sword.
So I stepped out from where I was hiding.
Cowering.
I took a few steps towards this demoness, took my short sword over my head,
By the power of Grayskull!
and I flung it as hard as I could, like an axe.
Game over, man. It's game over.
The Dungeon Master says, all right, Vorse, go ahead and make your attack roll. So I grabbed my D20, my 20-sided die, and I rolled a 20. For those of you not familiar with Dungeons & Dragons, a natural 20 or a critical hit is the best roll you can make on an attack roll. All of a sudden, the other 4 players kind of popped their heads up and were paying a little bit more attention to this little newbie here, thinking, maybe we might live, 1 round or 2 rounds longer, that's it.
I'm not dead yet, so let's drink to that.
The Dungeon Master then asked me to roll a percentile roll. That's where you roll 2 d10s, 2 10-sided dice, to get a percentile between 1 and 100. He was currently using this book, The Best of Dragon Magazine, Volume 5, that came out in 1986, and in this book was an article that was called Good Hits and Bad Misses. It had charts and tables in here for critical hits and critical misses depending on the weapon that you were using. He used this for all player characters, non-player characters, and all the enemies that were going against us. So I made my roll, and I rolled a 100. All of a sudden, the other 4 players, they jump up in the air and they're screaming and laughing and giggling and they're high-fiving each other. I didn't know what was going on. There was pizza and pretzels and chips flying all over the place, so I looked at the dungeon master, who kind of had a shocked look on his face. I said, I think I did something good, but I have no idea what I did. He was just kind of rubbing his face like this and in disbelief, so he handed me this article and he said, all right, Vorist, go ahead and look at the very first chart, look up to see what 100 says, and you tell me. On the critical hit effects table for edged weapons, a roll of 100 means decapitation. Instant death.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
So using this magical short sword on my very first ever Dungeons & Dragons attack roll, my first ever damage roll, where I only had a 5% chance to do a critical hit and even less, a 1% chance to do the damage that I just did, I don't think this was the outcome that anybody was expecting, but it was pretty amazing.
Great kid, don't get cocky.
We certainly knew we weren't out of danger. I was the only one, I don't know how, who didn't sustain any hit point damage. So we found a place to hide.
Let's hide behind the chainsaws.
Smart. Yeah, okay.
We healed a bit, we rested, and the decision of the party was, let's just get the heck out of this dungeon, this temple, and get back to the closest town. We did escape, but unfortunately we had lost 2 of our party to random encounters, wandering monsters of all things. So when we did get back to town, for the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks of game time, we healed, we rested, we recouped, we replenished our supplies, but most of the time we basically just stayed in the tavern, drinking, eating, saluting the comrades we lost, and telling some great stories. After this session was over and we were winding down for the night, the dungeon master started divvying out experience points. He said, well, Tom, basically you just gained about 15,000 experience points during your first session. On paper, that is. There was no way he was going to promote me, advance me to 5th level, so I was advanced to 2nd level and just 1 point below 3rd. I was pretty thrilled, though, because you know what? I just played my first session of Dungeons & Dragons. I survived. I had a lot of fun. I made some great new friends that lasted for a good 10 years until we all kind of went different ways. And my character became legendary. So how were you introduced to Dungeons & Dragons? What was your first character? How did your first gaming session go? Was it good? Was it bad? Was it legendary? Leave a couple comments below to share with other fans of the game, because I would probably enjoy seeing what actually happened with your experiences. If by chance you haven't subscribed to my channel yet and you like what you see, you like what you hear, please consider in doing so, because my channel cannot grow without your support and you guys subscribing to it. In my next video, I am going to share with you a real Dungeons & Dragons treasure hoard. Until next time, everybody, I hope you all get to enjoy life and that you all escape reality quite often. Take care, everyone.